Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Online Darts Fallout Bar as we bring to an end night 14 of the 2026 Darts Premier League. And as the caption says, folks, time is running out. We are joined once again from both across the pond and across the Pennines. Dave Connolly and Dan Spedding. How are we this evening, gentlemen?
Good, mate. Good. Could have maybe done with 1 or 2 6-0s to make it a little bit of an earlier evening for everybody involved. But other than that, I thought we had some really good games tonight.
Yeah, mixed bag, I think, Dave, wasn't it? It was interesting, and we'll come to all the salient points. But the Premier League is still alive, I think. You know, there are still twists and turns. I think everybody's fear was that by night 14, it's all wrapped up. But there's still plenty to play for, isn't there?
Yeah, I think we've been waiting for someone to make some sort of established move to kind of solidify themselves. And I mean, we're down to 2 nights left, and I still think we have 4, maybe 5 guys for 2 spots. Probably not, probably 4. But yeah, I mean, this is peak drama if you want it for the race for the O2.
Yeah, and we'll come to that a little bit later, folks. It will get especially interesting when it comes to prediction time. Good evening to everybody in the comments. Everybody watching along, please make sure that you are liked and subscribed to the channel, because that will allow you to get stuck in both with some banter throughout the show and also when we come to predictions a little bit later on, where me and the chaps will discuss what we think is going to happen next week when the travelling circus arrives in Birmingham. But that is a full 7 days away. And for now, we remain in Leeds. We're still in Yorkshire. And we're in, a bit of an interesting night. I'm going to flick the comments on so we can get the chat room live on the screen as well, so you can all have a little look at who's saying what. And we're going to rewind all the way back to about 7:15 this evening, when we started with an all-Welsh clash. And I quite looked forward to this one. I thought this was going to be a really fun game. I thought that, Johnny's missed a Thursday night. Gezzy is, I believe, and I have said it for weeks and weeks, I've been laughed at every single Monday night on the live lounge for insisting that Gerwen Price is not safe yet. And it seemed to me, Dave, I'll come to you first. I felt this game was more a tale of an underperformance from Gezzy Price than it was, a blockbuster from Johnny Clayton. He just did what he needed to do, Johnny, didn't he?
Yeah, I was certainly one of those people that thought that Gezzy was pretty much a shoo-in. I think obviously jumped the gun a bit there, and I'm getting towards panic button time for Gerwen Price. Just the way he looks, I think the back thing might not be fully, healed, put together. He's got all these side projects he's doing. Like I don't know. The vibes are a little. I'm just getting a little concerned because, I mean, last week I gave him a bit of a lashing on here. He just kind of gave up against Littler when he lost. I don't know, man. It's not. He's certainly of the 4 you want to say in the race. He's barely playing better than Jan, who I know we'll get to. But you can make a case MVG and Humphries look better than him over the past month. Worrying times, worrying performance, and like you said, this to me was more about Price not looking at it, not having that tenacity, and Clayton just putting in one of those consistent 98 average performances, 40% on doubles, just what we've seen from him all year that's kept him, in those top 2 places. And 2 for 12 on doubles for Gezzy. Just didn't. There's just something missing. Something's off, and with 2 weeks left, like I wouldn't be surprised if we see him slip out of those spots. You can't say he's in at all.
So I have a bit of a theory, and Dan, you might. Yeah, I'm happy to be told I'm wrong, but I love the Premier. Everyone, I love the Premier League, and I think it's been a good Premier League in the sense that there has been some good performances, and there's been some good matches. But what I sort of think that Gezzy has benefited a little bit, and still is benefiting from being, for want of a better phrase, the best of a bad bunch. Because I sort of think that outside of the top two, outside of Littler and Clayton, I think everybody else, you can make a very strong case that they've underperformed over the course of the Premier League. And I think Gezi has just underperformed the least. I know we've had a couple of night wins, but then you look at the way everybody played, and I think there has been a real flatness to sort of positions 3 through 8. And at this point, because we can talk about Johnny as we go through, but is Gezi just hanging on, or are you still in the camp that the game's where it should be and he's all right?
I mean, I never thought I would say this, but you might actually be onto something, Mr. Simpson. Because
tell you what, it's rare, isn't it?
You started saying it a few weeks ago, and it was like, no, he's got more than enough wiggle room to have a couple of off weeks, but the weeks seem to be getting worse, and the field seems to be closing in.
I had a bit of a play. I did have a bit of a play with the fixtures and the league table and a couple of AI engines where I was sort of like almost fantasy, but like if he does, if the pressure comes on a little bit and he does get beat by Johnny today, and I genuinely thought today was a day when either Luke or Jan, and possibly both, could pick up some points. And I seem to see that over a number of weeks. There was a number of sets of fixtures that I thought, ooh, this isn't as comfortable as people seem to think.
Yeah.
He's also had, and God makes a really interesting point in the comments, that he's benefited immensely from, both Michael van Gerwen and Jan van Veen missing nights and those walkover wins, no points. So yeah, I think I think obviously he's earned the points that he's earned, but I think he is I still think it's a perilous position. Johnny is playing with the freedom of a man that it has achieved all of his goals and isn't that bothered about finishing first, isn't he? And he's just having fun
until he reached the semi-finals. But yeah, it felt very much like it was a ferret performance, wasn't it? It was nothing too flash. He didn't need to do too much, but we know with Johnny, he's always going to be pretty good on the outer ring. As long as he's scoring, doesn't go too far off the ball, he's always going to be there or thereabouts in matches if his opponents are going to give him opportunities.
Is there a nice one there as well, do you think, Dave? There's a lot talked about in terms of the head-to-head between Johnny and Gezi. And, people will regularly say about how much Gezi has his number and he can't get the win over his countrymen. But it's just another one, and there's not loads of them, but, it's another one in the ferret box, the tick in that column, isn't it? And I think as they start to rack up a little bit, he's on the track to sort of putting that talk to bed, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's such a perfect guy to have something like that happen to, if that makes any sense, because of his mindset. I don't think he cares. Like, you sometimes hear guys say that. I think we hear Price say it about Littler. Price said it in the past too about his like kind of curse he had with MVG. And you can kind of tell it. I think it does bother him. Humphries with Littler, like a lot of that stuff. Johnny is just he has such a good demeanor about him in his interviews and when he's on stage. And he's just so steadfast in worrying about himself and the way he's playing that, he doesn't. Someone asked him when he had, I think he had beaten Littler 2 or 3 times in a row prior to their, I think, previous meeting or a few weeks ago, if he thinks he's got one on him. And he's like, I'm not saying anything. I'm just playing my game. And that's kind of the way he is. So for almost anyone else, yeah, I think it would matter. But for him, I just think he goes up and plays his game, and that's what he did tonight. That's what he's done all season, and that's why he's in this position he's in. So no, good on him. And yeah, this is some of the best starts that we've seen from him in I would say a few probably since 2021, like a few years.
Yeah, it's looking good, isn't it? Game number 2. So Luke Littler, the table leader and heavy favourite in every game that he plays, against Michael van Gerwen, who again another player that I consider to be right on the cusp, very, very far from safety in my book, and some tough obstacles to overcome if he is going to book his spot at the O2. And this got off to a very, very strange start, Dan. That first leg is not what we're used to seeing from either. If there are two players in the world that we could just say lack composure, these two would not be anywhere near that. And I don't know what went on, but I tell you what, it did seem to light a bit of fire over them, and we got a proper game after that first leg, didn't we?
I mean, the fact that they've managed to get their averages to three figures after that just shows the quality of the game. It was ridiculous. It was a lovely touch from both to give the crowd an insight onto how they warm up and just having a little chuck for the first leg. I think this one's going to hurt Michael a bit tonight because Van Gerwen, we've said we don't know where all three darts are going to go. He's been all over the place, and there was a lot less of that this evening than there has been. But he just fell apart a little bit in that last leg, and that's what Michael's done to people for a decade, 15 years. He puts them under pressure, and he's not usually the one to crumble under that type of pressure. But I think that 1-4-1 from Littler just, I think at that point he knew the writing was on the wall when he was sitting on 41.
Yeah, I got the impression from this, Dave, that it was one of those performances from Michael Van Gerwen where he was very unfortunate again in terms of who he had to play in the opening round, because I think that performance from Michael beats anyone else this year. I think that performance gets him the win over the other six, and he's just done it over, he's not going to be able to rattle Littler. Littler can just pop it whenever he fancies. And yeah, just wrong opponent on the wrong day, and you just got to take them on the chin, I think, haven't you?
Yeah, and this is why I feel like current day MVG is this drug that people just can't get over, because he will have what happened in the first leg, and then he kind of tapers off towards the end of the match, especially in the final leg where, he's left 103. He wasn't too competitive in it. But when he was 4-1 down to get it to 4-4, I mean, those three legs were like vintage MVG. He was pounding in 180s, taking out every checkout he sees. Like you're like, all right, where's this been? Like, maybe we're onto something. Maybe he's going to take charge in this match, in the night. Maybe make the push for the O2 that we've been kind of waiting for. As he's kind of sat around fourth. And then he just went back to being kind of modern day MVG in like the mid 90s, which is still great. Good enough to be, in the Premier League for now, good enough to be in the top 32. But that ceiling just isn't as consistent as it used to be. And those three legs were just so good. You just thought something was going to come of it, and nothing did. And yeah, like you said, I think it would have been enough to get it done over anyone else, but it's not always how it works. And they said on the comms that, maybe he looked at tonight as kind of a free hit because he knew who he was playing in the quarters. But he's really in the thick of it because of what's happened around him, which I'm sure we'll get to here.
Yeah, absolutely. So game number 3. I thought it was a good game. I thought it was a decent watch. The level maybe wasn't as much as we saw in other games. I think Humphries perhaps was letting the occasion get to him a little bit in the early stages, and I think Rock almost slipped into what we've seen a lot of him lately, where we talk a lot about doing the right things at the right time, and I think Josh Rock at this Premier League has done a lot of the right things at the wrong time. He's done all of his best work on his own throw, and when he's needed a bit more, he's not been able to find it. And I did, Dave, changed my mind 3 or 4 times through the course of this game as to who I thought was going to win. But it was a funny old encounter, wasn't it?
Yeah, this one was weird. Just a mess on the outer ring. 26% from Rock, 29% from Humphries. It's been the story of both of their years. Like, these guys are, I mean, Rock maybe hasn't shown it as much in the Premier League, at least in the first half. These guys are power scorers. Like, they can fill it up. I don't remember what the should have it right here with the 180 tally was 6. So that's not, Rock 4-2 on 180s and still only averaged 91. Like, that kind of sums up like how things can go for him when it's not going great. The doubling was tough. I think it was in a lot of matches tonight. And it's the reason if Rock already is pretty much out, so he can sum it up to that. But if Luke doesn't make it, It's been the story of his whole campaign. He's really lucky to get away with this one here, because if this goes any other way, then the night doesn't pan out the way it does, and he's really in trouble heading into next week. So he's got to count his lucky stars. He was playing Josh Rock and not MVG or Littler here. So yeah, tough. It just kind of sums up both of their years so far. Just really rough doubles, and Cool Hand was lucky to get over the line.
Yeah, I think Dan, it did sum up a little bit the campaign of both players this year, didn't it? It was, Josh Rock it's just that year of not being able to quite find what he wants, and Luke Humphries being good but not quite good enough. I thought this game was a very much just a summary of what we've seen for the last 13 weeks before tonight of both of them.
I think from the Rock perspective, I definitely agree. It's tough for Rock, if he's going into a deciding leg. Look, he's a professional sportsman. Of course, he wants to win, but he's not really playing for anything. He knows he's got a couple of weeks of travelling around the UK left. He's probably going to love it. If he does well in some of the majors this year, he'll be back, and hopefully he'll be in a better place to compete next season. I think for Humphries, on paper, it is what we've seen this season. We've seen him lose so many games like that this year. So I think it was a little bit of a turning point for him to have one of them gritty games where he's had to really go to the well and still come out on top. It's not how he wants to be playing, but we've seen Luke Humphries average another 15 on that average and find a way to lose games. So to find a way to win when you're not playing particularly well, I wouldn't say it was a promising performance, but I do think there's a little nugget you can take there.
Yeah, this is a really good point. I think is that, there is a difference, especially in these short format games where you are playing the best in the world in a big arena, is that, you don't get paid on your average, do you? That's like we've got, there's a few interesting quotes about that we'll leave alone for now. But it's about winning games, and he hasn't done enough of that this year. So I think every time he gets one in the bank, it's a positive sign. Yeah, funny old game, but we wrapped up the quarterfinals. Game number, if I can say it, game number 4 was another 6-5, 3 on the bounce, 6-5, and Stephen Bunting finds a way to win against Jan van Veen. And again, this one isn't going to go down in the record books, Dan, as one of the best Premier League games in terms of standard and huge scores, brilliant doubling, massive finishes. But it was an entertaining watch, and again, it kept you guessing, didn't it? I think Jan, he legitimately had something to do. He's a couple of points away, and I think it was a big opportunity missed for him there.
I think so. That match gives me a lot of concern for Jan. I am not very confident with the way he's playing, and that match in particular. If you told me both were going to average 90, it was going to go to sudden death, I would have put the house on Stephen Bunting not winning that match. So first of all, fair play to Stephen Bunting, because if he can find a way to do that regularly, which I'm sceptical about because he's had a long career and he's never really been able to figure it out consistently. But fair play, because he took his chance in the last leg, and that's not usually his strong point. But that has to feel like a real missed opportunity for Jan, especially the opportunity to play Humphries in the next round as well, and potentially go on and try and take some points off him. So that's a real concern for the Dutchman tonight.
Yeah, you felt, I don't know about you, Dave, but when in that first leg, when Jan broke the Stephen Bunting throw, then he goes 2-0 up with that early break. I almost thought, like, I can have a flick around the channels here, I know what is about to happen in the next 15 minutes, and I don't really need to pay too much attention. And he just he found a way. There seemed to be just a real uncomfortableness. We saw him looking around the room a little bit and looking for something. There was a real inconsistency, I think, the way his darts were going in the board in all the ways that there could be. There seemed to be an inconsistency in terms of their angle. There seemed to be an inconsistency in terms of the direction. He couldn't quite find the way, the line, anything really didn't. He seemed like he was constantly clinging on, like it was about to all go wrong. And he hasn't got a long time to mend that, has he?
No, and I was one of those people after last week. I came on here and said it. He put up the 104 against Clayton in the quarters, 102 against Humphries, and just fell short against a really good Humphries who got a key break in that match. So I was all in. I think I picked him to win this night. Like I was all in on him to make that charge for the 0-2. This stunned me. I mean, I think 9 out of 10 versions of him win this match, especially against the 90 from Steven, and the 10th version showed up. Like I haven't seen so often. He obviously, the way his darts lie, he loves just below that wire. He had so many of those first dart, and he was doing nothing with them. And that's when you just know something's wrong. He had the 2 darts at the double 12 to win it. I backed him. I believe he was the highest. Had the highest checkout percentage in the world last year. So I thought he had a great shot to hit it, and it just kind of was the story of the match for him. And like you said, he never looked comfortable up there. He looked like he was constantly puzzled every time he completed a visit. And troubling times because he's 3 points off the 0-2, and it's starting to look like, I mean, he's going to need to at least get to 5th if he's going to want a shot to play a bit of maybe a play-in match in week 16. So really he's running out of rope, and that was a huge loss. He needed that match bad. And like Dan said, you got to give some credit to Steven, because these are ones we just expect him to lose at this point.
Yeah, I think it is worrying. I think that it's one thing when something's not quite going right for a player, but you sort of get the impression that both you as the viewer and they as the player know what it is. They know what's not quite clicking. They know the action's breaking. They know there's a problem. I think you summed it up there when, he looked puzzled. He looked like it wasn't happening. He couldn't quite figure out why. He's going to have to find something very, very quickly, because he's on, it's last chance saloon, I think, especially if we're seeing, MVG doesn't have to play Littler first thing, and he could come and play all right. We don't know what we're going to see from Humphries. I think this half the problem is they're so unpredictable this year. You don't know what you're going to get.
The thing I praised him for, and a lot of us did in the first few weeks when he was making the finals, is he wasn't playing well, and he was still getting there. And we were praising this, how solid his B game was, and how high his floor was when he played. And that feels like it's kind of given out, which is such a quality. That's what makes you such a good player. That's what makes the elites the elites. Everyone has the ceiling. Can you have that 95 average floor? And I haven't seen him play like this in probably over a year now. Like, it's a little worrying when you're seeing him put up a 90 average. That's just not his style.
No, it certainly is not. And it's a little bit worrying. Moving into the semi-finals, we've got another 6-5, because this was it shouldn't be called night 14. It should be called night 6-5. It was a real 6-5 fest this evening. And we saw, once again, the most common match of the Premier League this year, number 1 and number 2, and a 6-5 victory for Luke Littler. And this was a nice game, Dan, but it had all the sort of feelings of a bit of a friendly. And when things went well for both of them, they both seemed to quite, nobody seemed to have that eye of the tiger here. It just looked like an exhibition. I felt a little bit. It was a good game, but number 1 playing number 2, everybody's already qualified. It's a bit.
There was a little bit of jeopardy missing from it. There wasn't a consequence for when things went wrong. I mean, I've just seen the averages there. I must have fell asleep for the second half, because it started amazingly, and I was like, oh my word, Johnny's going. I think Johnny was up in the 113s or something for the first half of the match, but there was just no consequence for falling off. I don't have another way to put it.
I think at 3, was it at 3-3? I don't think Johnny had missed a double, had he? I think it was, it was a decent part through the match when he hadn't missed a double and he looked up. But again, I think you sum it up well in that, there just wasn't that jeopardy. There wasn't that, and of course there will be, because I think we're going to see this game with more jeopardy on it fairly soon. But yeah, it was just it was a nice one to watch, but it didn't tell us. We didn't learn a lot, I don't think, Dave, did we?
No, I think the only minor takeaway maybe Johnny could have, and he probably already knew this because he's beaten him in this year's Premier League a fair amount, but he just knows he can gallop with him. A longer format will be obviously more favoring towards Luke Littler, but he's like, all right, I can at least, the issue with playing Littler, it was the same thing as prime MVG Phil Taylor. You just got to gallop with them and hope they have a little slip up where you can maybe sneak a break and win by 2 legs or 3 legs. Like that's really what it is. You're not going to pound them in. They could be playing terrible and you're still not. I mean, he averaged 94, Littler. That's a bad Littler performance. I don't think, Dan said, I don't think it quite was that bad. I think it's doing it's a little bit harsh on the numbers there, but it was a bad performance and he still won. Like that's kind of what you're getting now with Luke Littler. And so, yeah, I think that would be the only minor takeaway for me. But, it's hard to take much away because of the lack of stakes in this one.
No, I think you're right, though. I think that, what do we play first round of the finals night? Is it best of 19?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Best of 19 in the semis and best of 21 in the final. I think, if I'm wrong, someone will correct me in the chat room. But I think you're right. Just that extra. Johnny knows he can beat anyone in the world when he's at it. But it is just that sometimes there's a familiarity and a recency that you can benefit from, of knowing that you can, go blow for blow with these guys when you meet them in where it really matters. But we'll muddle past that one because it was a game that happened. The other semi-final, I found this is the one that I got really tuned in because I thought at this point, this could be the night. This is going to be the night for Humphries because we saw that elevation, that real lift in level from which is what I think we haven't seen enough of from him this year, is him coming out, averaging 95, getting it done in a deciding leg, but then coming out and averaging just shy of 107, or whatever that was, 106 point something, is that big score. And I thought, right, is that it? Stephen Bunting played incredible. Yet another tale from this year of a plus 105 average from Stephen Bunting in a game that he didn't win. Like that, I think that is the story of this year's Premier League campaign. But yeah, it was at this point, there was parts in this point, Dan, where I started to believe, or I felt like the Luke Humphries fans would be starting to believe, the thing, this lad's not done yet.
Oh, this game had me on a seesaw. I was at some points I was like, Bunting's going to win the night, and then he's going to creep back into it, and then Humphries. Fair play to both. It was a brilliant game. They both give it a lot. I convinced myself Bunting might get over the line because of the wear he did against Jan in the first leg, but expecting him to do 2 times in the nights, not really Stephen Bunting. But it's good to see Luke beating people playing well and winning close games of darts again, because that's been what we haven't seen for this 13 weeks. And he was brilliant in that match. As I say, hats off to both. I don't have any negatives to say about that game. Probably puts an end to Bunting's outside chance of making anything in the playoffs, but that performance itself isn't why he won't make the playoffs. There's other things that he can point to for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're mathematical on that. Well, I think we might actually be, to be honest. I haven't seen the updated table yet. We may well be mathematically confirmed on that one. But yeah, David, is this sort of performance at this stage in the Premier League? Is this really all Stephen Bunting can hope for? Well, I suppose he lost the match, so he could hope for more. But he is still turning up and he's playing very well. He's turned up. He's got a game one that was nervy, and he played particularly well. I think he should have won this game. That's, I think, the one that worries me slightly. I think he should have won it. It was another big performance, and that's why I think it sums the campaign up a little bit.
I mean, I don't think anything sums up his campaign more than a 105 average, 3 clear darts at tops to win it, missing them, and then losing. Like, I never felt confident that those were going to go in. Me and Dan have said that all year. Like, you just don't, when he needs those pressure doubles, and he hit a few in the quarters and in the semi to get to this point. I don't want to completely bash him, but this was his chance to really get back into this race. Missed all 3, and even Luke Humphries, who has been a mess on the doubles this year, walks up and takes out a 2-darter and 2 darts. And it's frustrating to watch because Steven played on. This was one of the matches of the tournament based on like performance from both players. Very frustrating to watch. It kind of, again, one of those performances that just sums up his year so far. But hopefully he can take something away from it. I don't think he's quite mathematically out. I do have an updated table I'm looking at, but man, he needed that one. And it had a bit of that elimination feel to it for whoever lost. I don't think you could have quite said that about Coolhand, but it would have hurt a lot. I know it's only 1 point, but just like the potential of winning in the final. So yeah, high stakes. They both really showed up, and someone had to lose, and had to be Steven, but great match.
Yeah, definitely. Quick shout out back into Security. Thank you very much for the super like in the comments there. Absolutely superb and very much appreciated. It all helps us continue to deliver these type of shows every Thursday when the Premier League's on, the live lounge on a Monday and everything else. The super likes are always very, very much appreciated, as are your members, as is everybody that gets involved in the chat room as well. We'll move on to the final, and just for a change, because we haven't seen enough of them through the course of the evening, we have once again got a 6-5, and this was a game that I did sort of change my mind a little bit, but this was a hold fest. It was a festival of holding your own darts all the way through, and neither of them, I don't know whether I don't know what was going on, but neither of them seemed to be able to find anything on their opponent's throw. I think the averages went up right towards the back end of the game. They were both averaging 108 on their own throw and 98 on their opponent. There was a 10-point swing in the averages with the darts and without the darts. And Dan, how much do we think Luke Humphries may live to regret that missed match start? Because that could be everything in a couple of weeks' time, couldn't it? That could be the difference maker.
It could be. I think the thing that will hurt Luke is, one, that's 4 weeks in a row that he's been knocked out by Luke Littler now. So there's a little bit of a narrative starting there. And if you give Luke Humphries 5-5 with Luke Littler in a final, you're throwing for the match, he would have ripped your arm out of the socket at the start of the night, and he had that opportunity. And was it 2 visits? Was it 3 visits without a treble? He just couldn't do it when it mattered. And Luke Littler showed why he's number 1, because even when he's not great, he can take it to the wire and find a way to navigate over the line.
Yeah, that was a real concern, Dave, for me when we saw those trebleless visits opening that leg. I genuinely I didn't think we'd see. We'd seen 10 holds of throw before that. So let's be honest. Everyone expected another hold of throw. But when you get a couple of visits and he's still hunting for the treble, you do on his behalf. You sort of sit there and you're like, oh, this is the wrong time. And yeah, he just couldn't find it, could he?
And it's even worse when he had a match dart to win it. Like, it just slipped right out of his grasp, and
he shouldn't have had that. Like, if you that many trebleless visits, you shouldn't still get a match start against Luke Littler. But it's like, even when everything's gone wrong, he still got that opportunity, and he just couldn't capitalize it, could he?
Yeah, and being in his own, his I know there's debate of his hometown and his, against his his biggest rival of the last 2+ years, and just couldn't quite get it done. And yeah, it felt like watching two power servers in tennis, just waiting for one of them to screw up or break, because there was no break. I mean, I think I'm looking here, 3 of the 10 legs, the guy not on the throw was left on a double. I mean, so many of these were, like you were saying, just complete blowout legs for the guy with the throw. So yeah, up until the final leg where Littler got the break. But yeah, it's just going to keep haunting him. And I don't know what I feel like, again, a lot of the motivation for these changes we've seen from Luke Humphries has been trying to keep up with Littler and keep up. And maybe he feels a little better with it being a 6-5 loss. I'm sure he'll look a little bit more fondly on it down the road. But yeah, I mean, there's just no one stopping him right now. Littler is just, we had that little lull, and it's what is it, 3 nights in a row, 4 consecutive finals. It's ridiculous. And he's doing it at just the right time for the O2 and then the back half of the year. It's remarkable to watch. Even when he's on it or not on it, he just finds a way to get over the line.
Yeah, it genuinely is. And, the hat-trick hero, we'll hear from him very soon, because we have got a clip. Hardest working man in darts, Phil Bars, has travelled all the way to Leeds, which for him is some trek. It's only 40 minutes for me, but for Phil, it is almost the entire length of the country. So Phil has been having a chat with Luke Littler. We'll hear from him in just a moment's time. I just want to think, 10 weeks ago, Luke Littler sat 7th in the table. And everybody was starting to think, is this the year? Is it gone? Is this finally when all of a sudden he becomes exposed? And it was just a fad after all. And then, he rattles off 3 on the bounce. That's 6 nightly wins now for Luke Littler, which is tying the 6 that he won last year. So Luke Littler can and may, probably will go beyond those 6 nightly wins that he got last year in this year's, which, having the start that he did and sitting 7th in the table by week 4, I think is quite remarkable. So let's have a little listen to what Luke Littler had to say when he spoke to Phil Bars a little bit earlier this evening.
Yeah, I think obviously beating them numerous times in last leg deciders over the years, obviously it helps me, but also, like you said, it might be in their head that, yeah, hang on a minute, it's me against Luke Littler in another last leg decider. And then, yeah, I might already have one over them before starting that last leg. But yeah, ever since the JDC days, I've always backed myself, and yeah, I think I produced really well in a last leg decider.
Not only are you world class at this sport, but like you said there, the fact that you've potentially got something over other elite athletes as well before they've even thrown a dart, that must be a great feeling.
Yeah, I think even obviously if you beat them comfortably or if you beat them in a last leg, it's always on the mind. Obviously the record with Gezi, it's a pretty one. Obviously me and Luke beat each other all the time, me and Michael. But yeah, obviously if I get these wins over everyone week in, week out, then obviously it gives me a lot of confidence, and then when they next face me, they've got to produce even better. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always going to come, and this is what I've got to do, just keep winning, and eventually hopefully they'll get bored of booing me because nothing's really working. But yeah, ever since Rotterdam, I've just, even tonight obviously there's a few boos, but nothing will ever top that. I think I can battle past anything.
It just looks solid, doesn't it? Like it just looks dialed in. I think at this point, I almost think the Premier League's maybe a bit dangerous for everybody else, because we know we come into silly season. We're rapidly approaching the match play. Once we get to the match play, we are into major season, and the TV events come thick and fast. And you almost give him he's almost getting a tune up, and he's got like 16 weeks of like remembering that every one of these people, are regularly beaten by him, and he has got their number and he can perform. And yeah, what a dangerous young man that he is on the dartboard. Right. We're going to leave Leeds. But it's worth noting, just before we move on to Birmingham, that Leeds Arena is my absolute favourite venue on the Premier League calendar beyond that of Newcastle, and we've removed Exeter, so that that's fine. Because genuinely, if you've never been before, if you haven't been to that arena in Leeds, you must have been, Dan. Have you been in that one, Dan?
I've never been Leeds. I've seen it at a lot of obviously darts boxing. It's got like a really weird vertical.
It's literally it's like an amphitheater. So you've got like the stage. You've got a very, very short seated, like sort of floor seating area. And then you've got this huge semicircle if you're sat on the ground floor, I've been on the front row for a Premier League night there. And when you look at it, literally just looks, you can't see the angle. It looks just like a wall. Literally just looks like a wall of people that goes all the way up. It's so impressive, but it makes for such a good atmosphere. I genuinely think it's the perfect room. If you were to say, like, we're going to start this thing, it's a Premier League, we need to build something to have it in, I would say, well, that's the perfect, like, shape, size. I think it's the only Premier League night I've never queued at the bar. Like, everything seems to work perfectly. Like, when you get there, everything seems to, you never seem to have to stand in a queue. There always seems to be toilets available that are clean. You never have to stand in a queue at the bar. It is genuinely, it Leeds is worth shouting out for the best Premier League venue to go and attend. But with that, we're off a cliff and we're going to Birmingham. So it is time for this. Right, we're going to go through some predictions for next week. If you're in the chat room, if you're following along, make sure you get yours in the chat room. We'll stick them on the screen as well. If you're watching and find that you can't get your predictions in the chat room, you haven't got access to a little box to type into, it's because you're not subscribed. So please do so, and then tell your mum and your nan and everybody else. So, opening game next week. And this is, I think the bracket is intriguing because of where we are with the league table. But opening game, Josh Rock and Jan van Veen. I'll come to you first, Dave, and see what you think is going to happen in this one.
My word. I mean, it's the two guys playing the worst right now, for sure, in my opinion. I can't pick Jan after what I've saw tonight. I mean, I'm hoping it's a one-off, but he's been kind of all over the place. A lot of those points, like we've said, are front-loaded to the beginning of the year. I think if you kind of did one of those, you see it in the Premier League, those tables after a certain time, he might be like bottom. Like if you go from when Rock got his first win to now, he might be below him. I don't know. I think he is.
I think he will be.
Yeah, I'm going to take Josh. I think the last 2 months he's looked fine, Josh. Like, he hasn't looked like an outlier. He just looks like the guy who's playing the worst, but not by a large margin. And if he can just find a few doubles, his scoring is certainly enough where he could pump in a ton plus. So, yeah, I'm going to say Josh wins and pretty much knocks Jan out of the O2 contention. I'll go 6-4.
Dan, what are you thinking?
I couldn't agree anymore with my American counterpart. I think Josh Rock's going to show up, not really too bothered. He's got nothing to lose. I think he'll put in a 95, a 96, and I think that'll be enough to dispatch a nervous Jan 6-3.
We're on dangerous ground here, chaps.
Oh no,
because I completely agree with you both.
Oh,
and I literally had that thought. So the first thought that went through my head earlier on today was when Jan van Veen lost that game and Stephen Bunting beat him. The first thought I had was, I can't pick Jan next week. He might be playing bottom of the league, but I can't. In all good faith, I can't pick him. So yeah, I'm gonna have it wobble. I think I'm gonna go with deciding leg and go 6-5. In the chat room, there seems to be a bit of a different view. We'll grab a little sample out here, but they're all the same. Gordon's gone Jan van Veen winning 6-4. Bob's gone Jan winning 6-3. Joel's got him winning 6-4. Jack Brown has got him winning 6-1. So we're very much yeah, we're very much in opposition to the chat room on this one. So we'll come back next Thursday and see who got it right, because one side is going to look silly.
Probably us.
Probably us. Yeah, one of the courts.
The alleged experts. Yeah, of course it will. Right, game number 2 next week. And, here's a game that matters. And this is what we want. At this stage of the Premier League, all we really hope that we can still see is games that mean something, games that will have a solid effect. And, this, I think, is a huge game for both players, because I believe, as people can say what they want about Gezi Price, he is in the mix. He is not safe, and he's been dragged right into it. But Gerwen Price plays Michael van Gerwen in a real big match. Dan Spedding, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Price's recent form, it's not looked good. It's not pretty. He's almost undone all his hard work and allowed himself to be sucked back into this dogfight. But Michael van Gerwen, I have no idea what MVG is going to show up to throw a set of darts. He could come out and average 88. He could come out and average 105. From what I've seen the last few weeks, though, I think Van Gerwen's more likely to play well. So I think he's going to topple Price 6-4.
Dave, what are you thinking?
So a little investigative journalism here with online darts. Stick with us. Gerwen Price on his story, long, his typical rant with a bunch of emojis and whatnot.
A lot of political discourse as well.
Yeah. At the end,
elections over today. Just because we might be able to get back onto normal Gezi socials instead of this fucking campaign.
So at the end, he says it's a little cryptic the way that it's generic, and at the end he says sometimes things happen you can't control. # pray for the O2. I don't know. I think this back is worse than we think. And I know Phil's mentioned it before. I think it's still ailing him. I know it's been something that's been a little on and off for him, but he has not looked himself lately, and I just can't back him. Until I see, the Gezi of a month ago show up, I can't do it. So I'm going to go MVG 6-3. What I worry is he gets, he still does it where he gets the patch of 2 or 3 legs where, he's just in there. And if he can just get a break or two within that spell and pull away, I think he'll be able to hold. So I'm going to go 6-3 MVG, and that will really tighten things up. If Price can find a way to win, he pretty much solidifies his spot. So this is like a play-in match for him. This is a huge deal. So if he's not at it, then I don't know when he will be.
Price wins this match, I could start to look silly after everything I've said for the last 8 weeks.
Double down, Dan.
You gotta.
Guess you
trust MVG.
Gezi Price wins 6-3. That's how it works. We're covering all bases here. We don't sit on the fence. We just back multiple horses. That's how we just back every horse in the race. Right, in the chat room, we've got Gordon with MVG winning 6-4. We have got a bit of a mix, I think, in this one. Bob has picked Price 6-4. Joel's with MVG as well, 6-3, as is Jack Brown, who's got 6-3 MVG out the top 4, and he's going to try and fight his way back in. That does narrow it, and that could make it a very interesting week in Sheffield. Game number 3 next week. Luke Humphries against Stephen Bunting. And Dave, will we see an angry Luke Humphries fired up after this week? Will he build upon it, or will the pressure get too much?
Oh, man. The pressure, say that again?
Good week for fixtures next week.
Yeah, because, you're starting to get to the point where the pressure could really be on depending on what happens in the previous quarterfinal. If MVG wins, he knocks Humphries out of 4th. Humphries goes to 5th. I mean, they might end up playing each other anyway in the following week, but, there's a lot. And there's even, if he doesn't win, there's more pressure on Luke to take care of business and extend the gap. So, yeah, he's going to be really under it here, given the order of fixtures we have. I'm going to take him 6-4. I think he's playing. It's just gradually getting better and better out of him, and you know, he had some doubles tonight that I feel like he missed in the past, maybe a month or two ago. The scoring's there, and he's relentless. He's not gonna, you know, he wasn't at his best tonight by any means. He still got to the final. He's still a winner, at least in my eyes. So I'll take him 6-4 over Bunting here.
Dan?
Yeah, I think tonight's semi-final may have just knocked the stuffing out of Bunting, going straight back into a Luke Humphries match. He's played that well and still can't beat them. Do I see him recreating a 106? Probably not. I think Humphries still has something to play for, so I think Humphries 6-2.
Yeah, I think I still believe that Luke Humphries with something to play for is dangerous. And I cannot see a scenario where even Stephen Bunting thinks he's going to win back-to-back nights, while every other result goes his way, because he has to win. It's an unbelievable set of circumstances. I think that
is it completely out of his hands now? He needs other results to go his way as well.
Pretty much.
I think he needs to win back-to-back nights, but then he needs some very obscure things to happen. He needs somebody to beat somebody else 6-1 while somebody else beats somebody else 6-3, and it's remarkably complicated. And I haven't got the mathematic ability to work it out, so it's far easier if Luke Humphries just gets there, isn't it?
There was a fear for Luke. Yeah. We know what we're talking about next.
Humphries turns up and beats him 6-3 in the chat room. Gordon has got Humphries. I think we haven't got a clean sweep. Gordon's got a Humphries 6-4. Bob's got Humphries 6-2. Joel has got Humphries 6-3. Jack Brown's gone 6-5 Bunting. Now that does actually make the mix even more interesting, because we've got that Gezi MVG match. One of them's going to definitely pick up a point. So yeah, that does get a bit interesting. And one game that maybe isn't too interesting is game number 4 next week. Johnny Clayton against Luke Littler. Number 1 plays number 2. Again, the game we've seen the most. We've seen it more than any other game, but we have probably the least idea about what's going to happen than any other game. Littler often starts slow. Johnny can be magical. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Johnny in a quarterfinals never. Oh well, I don't want to say never a favourable matchup because it's Luke Littler, but the least favourable matchup for Luke, probably. The only thing in the back of my mind is Clayton, he's got his bags packed for London. He's not that bothered. I think Luke likes to break records, and he's probably got that big nightly wins record in his mind. So just because of that, I want to see a Littler 6-4. I think we might get a very focused Nuke next week.
Dave, what are we thinking?
I'm gonna say Johnny. I'm gonna say he gets it done. I feel so dumb picking against the kid that just never loses, but I like the way Johnny hung around tonight, and I think it's just he's you just got to make it about a handful of darts when you play Luke, and just hope that those darts go your way, and that's kind of what he did tonight against them, and they just didn't go his way. And that's all right. Like when you're against someone this good, that's just kind of what you have to do. Play as good as you can, make it come down to some pressure darts and hope he slips. And I think we'll see the same here. I will go 6-5 Johnny. I really like the way he's playing, and the scoring was really good tonight. That impressed me the most, because I think when he's not at it, that's the thing that leaves him. He'll throw a 41 or a 26 and out of nowhere. So I'll take Johnny 6-5. I think he gets the upset here.
6-4 Littler for me. It sets up the Luke semi-final that I think we will see, and I quite want to see. I like the idea of Humphries needing it and having to play Littler. I think that's what Humphries needs, actually. I think he needs to get over the line against Littler to start to build things back up again. Right, last one for the night, chaps, and everybody in the chat room. All we're asking for here is, who is your night 15 winner? Who is going to be the king of Birmingham, and who are they going to beat in the final? Dave, you go first.
Let's see. I had Rock MVG. I'm gonna put Josh Rock in the final, which is that top half of the bracket might be the four.
Bunting final, Larry, next week just to really shit everybody up.
that top half next week might be the four most out of form players in the Premier League. That is gross. I'll take. Yeah, I can't believe I'm taking Rock. I'll take him 6-3, and then I'll take. Let's see. I have Humphries, Clayton. I'll go Humphries. I think the hungrier dog wins that one. I'll take him 6-3, and I'll take Humphries to get his first win, 6-5 over Josh Rock, who I actually think maybe the lack of pressure. I think he's played a little bit better due to it, and I think he'll show up and not really care, and that's probably a good thing for him right now. So yeah, I'll take Humphries 6-5, but Rock gives him a bit of a push.
Interesting, Dan. What are you thinking?
I'm going to see it. Van Gerwen will beat Rock in the semi-finals, 6-4. I mean, like Dave said, Luke Littler's won 3 in a row. Surely he can't win 4 in a row and beat Humphries 5 weeks in a row. So for no other reason than the maths, that'll prove me wrong next week. I'm going to say Humphries gets one over on Littler, 6-5. Oh, and then a Humphries MVG final. I hope I'm right. That would be tasty. And Humphries is going to get his first nightly win, toppling MVG 6-3.
I think you've sold me, Dave, you know. That top half is shite.
It's terrible.
And I think that game between Price and MVG is very, very important to both players. And there could be a risk of a bit of an adrenaline dump having come through that. And if you're Gezi secured, if you're Michael, like it's still... I've picked Gezi to beat. I think Michael would go on and win, but I've picked Gezi, so I'm going to pick Josh Rock to be in the final, but he'll be beaten by Luke Littler, who will get his 7th night win. He can't break the points record, see, because he started so badly. So what you've got is you've got weeks where not only did he not win, but he wasn't picking up like the quarterfinal, the quarterfinal win, semi-final win, wasn't picking up those little bits of points. So he can't, even if he wins both nights, he can't top his points record. But he can.
He's got to save a record to break next year, hasn't he? Like he can't do it all in one year.
But he can break his nightly win record. So I think he's on for that. And Littler will beat Rock in the final. Let's have one last look into the chat room to see what they think is going to happen. Joel thinks it's going to be Humphries over MVG in the final. Gordon thinks that the final is Littler beating Price. Jack Brown has got Van Veen Littler final. I tell you what, Bob as well. It's gone Van Veen beating Luke Humphries. Wow. Leaving a Sheffield decider. So some Jan Van Veen love in the chat room tonight. Everyone's picked him to win, and then his first game, and then 2 of them have picked him to win the night. Gordon has double there with the Price 6-4 Jan Van Veen semi. Right, folks, that is night 14 of the 2026 Premier League darts. I have been Dan Simpson from up here in Teesside. We've been joined from across the pond and across the Pennines, Dave Connolly and Dan Spedding. Thank you very much, chaps, for joining us on the show. Thank you all in the chat room, as ever, for getting involved with some banter and predictions. We'll be back on Monday night for the live lounge, 8 p.m. as always, and we're back next week with a fallout bar to see what's happened in Birmingham on night 15. Thank you all very much for watching along, and good night.